Hey y'all, and welcome to Politabrawl. My name is Brian, and Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeier, who is now the Undersecretary for the Air Force, absolutely clowns Jamie Raskin in front of Congress. This is going to make him really reconsider his actions. Let's dive in.
Fort Benning was renamed after a pro-union, pro-American general. Fort Gordon was renamed as Fort Eisenhower. Fort Hill was renamed as Fort Walker. And yet, I take it this is part of the big anti-woke arraignment and indictment of the military that we have renamed military bases after pro-union, pro-American soldiers, generals, people who've been loyal and faithful to the Union, as opposed to those who have opposed the Union and took up arms against the Union in traitorous insurrection. Now, what you're saying is that we should have army bases named after Confederate generals or Nazi generals, people we've defeated in war. Is that right?
I'm not willing to let you put words in my mouth.
We're about
just
2 minutes over here, so
That's
we're
fine.
just going to let Mr. Lohmeier finish, and that's it.
So my point is, this is not an issue in which I've actively been involved. The renaming of base. I wrote a book about Marxist DEI, Marxist critical race theory. That's my expertise. I have no personal issue with the fact that this gentleman to my left, who honorably served his country, has been a part of a commission to do that. I have personal opinions about why it's wrong-headed and a part of an ideological push, but this is not my
So
issue.
you would not have renamed them, in other words.
Well, we're
Point of order.
2.5
That's
minutes
not
over.
something I ever focused on.
All right, I think I got my answer,
That's not
Mr.
something
Chairman.
I've
I'll
ever
yield back to
Go
you.
for Mr. Biggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the witnesses being here today. So, Mr. Lohmeier, when we look at some of the things that have been said by the gentleman to your left, and don't think I can pronounce your name. I want to pronounce it right.
Sigilly, but
Mr. Sigilly, yes, thank you. And I've read your testimony. I'm interested to know your reaction to his positions with regard to the diversification of the military
Sure.
and DEI.
Thank you. One point that the general made with which I disagree is that diversity is our strength. I don't think there's any evidence for that, but definitions matter. Words matter, and we're losing touch with this. I would reject the notion that diversity is our strength based on DEI definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Merit-based, okay, I'm going to get away from that because if we're trying to find a unity of understanding, let me say this. Skill and performance matter in the military if you'd like to deter conflict and win our nation's wars, period. As a commander in the military, I had a black colonel fly across the country to promote me to lieutenant colonel because I love the hell out of the guy and respect his views on the Federalist Papers, which he was teaching me after work hours, and because he was the best leader I've ever worked with. The best airman that I had working for me, incidentally, was a transgender airman. So don't bullshit me and say that you think you know what you're talking about. You've never served. You don't understand how this works. We care about performance in the military, period. You don't know what you're talking about. Most of the people in this room don't know what they're talking about. We need lethality in the military, period. All of the stuff you guys talk about, the men and women in uniform don't think about. They go play Call of Duty at night after they learn their mission and execute that mission, period. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what you're voting on. They don't care about your sexual preference. They don't care what you look like, and they don't care what the person next to them looks like, period. I'm a citizen of this country, and I can dislike you and criticize you all I want here, but our men and women in uniform cannot. And so I speak on their behalf when I say lethality matters, merit-based selection and promotions matter, and your ideology doesn't matter one bit.
the good lieutenant colonel is 100% correct, and not just because I agree with them, which naturally is a good indicator. Seriously, this dude knows his stuff. He has written multiple books on the subject, and there seems to be a running theme in the American military right now under Donald Trump. And this is what the lieutenant colonel has written. Let's see, he has written a book, Irresistible Revolution, Marxism's Goal of Conquest and the Unmaking of the American Military. And that whole idea is basically that Marxism has been taking this long march through the institutions like it has in our education system. Funny, it's almost as if there's another dude that has come up with the exact same thesis in his own book. I don't know, does the name Pete Hegseth ring a bell? But that seems to be a running theme in the Trump presidency right now, because these guys fundamentally understand that we've got two huge problems in our military. Not only are recruiting numbers were down before Joe Biden finally realized that he might need to change some things up here, and then Trump then took that and then really boosted numbers. So not only was recruiting down, but morale was down. As a matter of fact, morale has been down in the American military pretty much every time since, I don't know, Harry S. Truman nearly botched the Korean War. Although I do blame MacArthur for that more than I do Harry Truman, but anyways, that's just me on the matter. But the American soldier does not care about who's in their foxhole next to them. They don't care if their wingman has a different set of unmentionables. They don't care as long as these people are competent. Diversity does not work for the military in the same way that it might work elsewhere. Granted, you want as many people as you can in the military, but that's not the kind of diversity that these Marxists want. They want a diversity of thought, which is not what you want in a military, okay? You do not want a ridiculous amount of soldiers who won't really obey orders. For a good example, just look at the Austro-Hungary Empire during World War I. Austria-Hungary had so many little nations inside of it that their soldiers were almost never in unison. It was just a debacle of a military mismanaging itself time and time and time again because the soldiers couldn't understand the direct orders. So diversity is not necessarily a strength, not even in the corporate world, but definitely in the military world. And Jamie Raskin is out here screaming about, oh, you wanted to change the names of these fortifications. Well, that's not a bad idea to not change the names. For instance, if you had served your time at Fort Bragg and had gone through training there, if you had gone to Fort Hill, I believe it was named after A.P. Hill, and Bragg was named after Braxton Bragg. Granted, Braxton Bragg was basically the reason the Confederacy lost. Do not look up how we mismanaged the Chattanooga campaign. I love looking at the war between the states and then looking at the history of the South afterwards. The real reason we named forts, that the Union would name forts after these Confederate generals, particularly in the South, was because these Confederate generals all came back to the United States afterwards. They all came back and became citizens again. It's not the greatest redemption arc in history, but it shows that once again, this is a strength of unity and effort after the fact. They weren't naming the forts after Confederate generals in the meantime. That makes no sense. But the point is, these forts were named like that not to honor the Confederates, but to honor the memories of the people that became Americans again. Furthermore, if you served in these places, you then sort of have a history to it. If there's a name change to something, that part of history starts to fade a little bit. It means something different now. That breaks that traditional chain, which is not good for morale. Again, morale under Democrat presidents isn't as good as it is under Republican ones, because Republicans have guys like Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance who are out there, did some PT with rank-and-file soldiers in D.C. This is what soldiers actually enjoy, and Jamie Raskin has no idea what he's talking about, not because he's an imbecile. Oh, no. Jamie Raskin is one smart cookie. He knows what he's doing. But he's playing in this terrible swamp that is Democrat politics. At one time, there were 3 ways to play in that pond scum of water. One was to be a blue dog Democrat. Well, those days are almost completely gone. The last 2 blue dogs are Joe Manchin and John Fetterman. And neither of them are personas of great gravitas in the Democrat Party anymore. As a matter of fact, most people want them gone. Then there's Jamie Raskin, who will use his rhetoric to run as far left as he possibly can in order to keep the people placated. Then there were the old moderates who used to go, I'm critical of some things, but I'm willing to go along to get along. Well, those moderates aren't doing anything anymore. The blue dogs have almost been run out of the party, and now Jamie Raskin's only choice is to run screaming to the left, when the reality is, under President Trump, recruitment is up. We're starting to have people like Lohmeier, or Lohmeier, who are coming in there with the ideas to rid the military of DEI and woke nonsense. This is a good thing for our military because it's better for morale. It's better to keep soldiers together and making sure that the chain of command works and that orders are carried out properly. This should not be a difficult principle, but it is for Democrats, it is for leftists, and more importantly, it is for Marxists, and those Marxists definitely need to be out of our military as much as humanly possible. And I can't wait till we start turning that energy back on our education system. So, Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier, thank you for your testimony. I can't wait to see what you do as Undersecretary. He is doing a good job, whereas Jamie Raskin, bless his heart, he doesn't really have much of a choice, does he? Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politabrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.